.com, valid for takeout or dine-in only.
Born in Atlanta and proud to be your source for sports, news, and talk. This is WCNN North Atlanta, a Dickey broadcasting station and an Atlanta original. We are the Fan. Division rivals clash in the postseason as the Braves take on the Miami Marlins in the 2020 National League Division Series. And the Braves Radio Network is getting you ready for the playoffs on our 2020 postseason preview.
He hits a towering fly ball to right field, back there towards the wall. Tell you what, if you're looking for firepower, you've come to the right place. Another home run for the Braves.
Tug Coward and Chris Domino are getting Braves country ready for a huge playoff run with appearances by Braves broadcasters Ben Ingram, Kevin McAlpin, and other big Braves names.
A two-run shot by Freeman, and the Braves are cruising tonight here at Truist Park.
Plus, you can stream the show live on YouTube. This is the Braves 2020 postseason preview, only on the home of the Braves, The Fan.
Well, we're back. We are delighted to be here, too, because we finally got the monkey off our back, guys. We wanted a playoff series, and now headed to the NLDS. It had been 19 years. We knocked out the Reds pretty quickly, and I don't know that there's a lot to recap except the fact that we were able to do something that even the experts at ESPN, the experts as they call them, said that we weren't going to do that. Over half had said the Reds were going to win. It was the power pitching that was going to take the Reds over the Braves, and that's exactly opposite of what happened. So the experts were wrong, and I think this time around most people are picking the Braves, and that sounds a little better.
Hope so. By the way, I hope we're doing this with each passing round.
Yeah.
I hope we can do this a few more times.
See you next week.
That's right.
And just keep rolling right along.
That's exactly
good to be with you guys.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. More surprising that the Braves beat the Reds or the Marlins beat the Cubs, because I know based upon what people were saying, as you said, in that expert world, both columnists and TV people, it really was the only higher-seeded team that more people, legitimately, more than 50% of everybody, when they started to take the TV folks and the writers and the .com folks, there was more than 50-50 on the Reds. Now, I know nobody really thought the Marlins was sort of a cuter pick, but the Marlins weren't supposed to beat the Cubs. So anybody who tells me, well, two sort of upsets in this whole thing, I don't really see it that way.
No.
There might have been one, but I think the Atlanta Braves just proved that while the starting pitching was better than we thought it was going to be, certainly in those two games, offensively the Reds were going to be challenged, and they were.
I never imagined the road to the NLCS would be Cincinnati and Miami.
No.
I never would have predicted that.
No.
And to your point, if you realigned that series again, Cubs and Marlins started tomorrow, best out of three, I think everybody still picks the Cubs again.
Do. Yeah.
You pick them again.
Been there, done that. Now, the power of the we never lose in the postseason thing seems to be kicking in. And to me, the most amazing thing, I had like one number. I was trying to find the number that I wanted to talk about for each team, and over the course of the next 2 hours. And we'll certainly do it locally here on 680 The Fan and down the radio network when the pregames actually start. Miami Marlins have 3 homegrown players on their team. 3. That's it. So when you talk about what do the Tampa Rays have to do, what do the Marlins have to do, they got to go get yours and coach them up. They got to go get yours because you undervalue them or they see something that they're capable of doing. 3 homegrown guys. It doesn't even seem possible in a 26, 27, 28-man roster in the postseason. You could have that few that you actually drafted and brought in yourself.
Right.
That's their case right now. And the Braves, by the way, in case you're wondering, 11 homegrown guys on what was the last postseason roster. We'll wait for the new one coming up in the next couple of days.
That still sounds like a low number, though, to me, for the Braves. It's, because it's all you hear about is how the Braves have the best minor league system in Major League Baseball, and we keep seeing them. We keep talking about them. The pitchers keep coming up, and we're like, oh, this new guy. We brought him up through the system. The 11 seems like a low number to me.
Well, and 11 might be what it is now, but there have been times in the season where that's fluctuated a little bit. If you think about it, this is a team that when it comes to spending, not at the very top,
sure,
not towards the very bottom. So you're talking about going outside your organization, getting a handful of guys, getting the right guys, not paying for pitching outside of Cole Hamels. I mean, you go out and pay the one starting pitcher, and you're relying on all these other young guys. So it's a good mix of both. And I think in the financial climate that the Braves are in, you need both. You don't want to not hit on your trades. You don't want to not hit on your free agents, but you also have to hit on the guys that you draft. You get all that together to get what you have with this ball club.
The Marlins can't afford it. The Marlins had 17 guys in their first postseason roster last week. 17 guys came in trades. So that's the deals that you go, okay, well, who do we get rid of? JT Realmuto, what do you get? Max Fried, I think one of the things, the 11 seems low. People might forget because Max Fried came up in our system. Yeah. Max Fried was drafted by the Padres.
Right.
So I think there were guys that you go, wait, they were in our minor leagues. Yeah, but they didn't start here.
Right.
Dansby Swanson.
Dansby's another.
He feels like a guy that was supposed to be here and was here, but he wasn't. He was a trade. But 17 trades for the Marlins got them to the point where last week they beat the Chicago Cubs to move on to this week.
Well, that's a cycle that they have to continue.
No doubt.
Because once they get to a point with a player where they have to pay him, they're not going to pay him. So I've got to trade that chip in for 2, 3, 4 other chips that I start the process over with. And that's what they did with Yelich. That's what they did with Ozuna. That's what they've done with other guys where they put Stanton as well.
They paid him, but then they actually said, okay, we did the contract. Now we're going to send it away.
And it's interesting thinking about them actually making a deal like that and then sending him away. But the Yelich return wasn't what they thought that it would be. I mean, Lewis Brinson wouldn't have been the top prospect in every organization the way it was in Milwaukee. It did work out pretty well with St. Louis. I mean, they get 3 players in return. Alcantara's one of them. They turned Zach Gallen into Jazz Chisholm, who's one of their top prospects. But that's the cycle that they're in. So what's interesting, Tug, is you're taking 2 different teams, and their way to get to where they are right now, they have to take 2 completely different paths.
Yeah, well, the money, going back to what you were talking about, the Braves just aren't going to spend the kind of money like the Yankees or the Dodgers. We all know that.
The other part is international free agents. You know, in international, the Atlanta Braves, they have 6 homegrown international players. The Marlins didn't really do that because they didn't spend money in that regard. They weren't going to go sign a guy for $28 million who had played in Cuba or had played someplace else. They were going to find him other places. They did it in a trade. They got 2 guys off waiver wires. And you just mentioned a couple of pitchers. Sixto Sanchez and Alcantara, you have 2 guys that you traded for. Mm-hmm. You traded major league talent to go get guys back who are going to pitch in this series in the first 3 games.
Same with Pablo Lopez. He came over from Seattle.
3 for 3.
They're 1 through 3 in games 1 through 3 are all guys that they traded for.
Yeah, look, though, and that's helped with the Braves, too, right? You get the Braves have been able to wheel and deal a little bit. You talked about Dansby Swanson. Look how that's turned out. Dansby, in the very beginning, got off to a little bit of a slow start. People were worried about his face being plastered on the side of the building, but he's become a really, really important piece to this team.
And I think you have to hit on those. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, being successful in that game is so big. I mean, if you have, think about this, and I'll use, and I don't mean to keep harping on Lewis Brinson, but use the Christian Yelich trade as an example. If the rest of their trades go like that one did, where you give up an MVP and get people in return who year after year you're hoping they get to that level and they just never do, you're just spinning your wheels. You have to hit on those, and they were able to do that with Pablo Lopez. I feel I like what they've gotten out of him. They definitely did that with St. Louis and getting Alcantara. So that's what they have to do, and then you got to hope these young guys can go out there and play. And I tweeted this out there earlier today. The average age for all 6 of these pitchers for both teams scheduled 1 through 3, 24 years old.
Right, and you're throwing them into the fire and saying, okay, go do it. Max Fried's the old guy, I guess. At 26 years old. The other thing about that is when they traded the Stanton contract, to me, what you're supposed to do in theory, we're not paying Yelich, we're going to spend that money someplace else. No, we're not. You trade the Stanton deal, well, you're going to take that money and spread it someplace else. No, we're not. At $1.2 billion for the price of that franchise, that was an overpay. In a lot of ways, it was an overpay, and you found out because they cut some front office people out, they cut Tony Perez out, Andre Dawson out. They were trying to save some money, but they didn't take the bulk of what would have been Stanton every year to pay it to somebody else. So they're living in a world where it's 17 guys in trades. And look, the homegrown 3 guys, that's a 1.5 WAR for the entire season. So it wasn't like you were getting a lot in numbers. It's 3. You weren't getting a lot of return. And when you look at some of these numbers, look, I'm not a huge WAR guy. Braves gave you an 8 WAR with the 11 homegrown guys. So it's the idea of figuring out a way in a world where it's going to be 26-man rosters, not 28, not 30 for a period of time. What can I do in terms of the gel to make sure that if I'm going to rob Peter to pay Paul by not paying this guy and letting him walk, what am I going to do with the money? Yeah. Miami just said, no. That Stanton money's not going to other people. What that's going to do is we're going to go pay for something else or not pay for something else that the public knows about. Give them credit, they're here. And the other thing about them is, look, we know them because we played them 10 times this year. We know them because it's the division. And it is crazy. All 4 of these matchups are true divisional matchups because the Central crapped the bed and just everybody went away. Like everybody from the American League Central and everybody from the National League Central, 7 teams just went bye-bye to create 4 true divisional series. But the Marlins' identity was born opening weekend when Ricky Pitalico, an announcer for the Phillies, called them bottom feeders. He was angry that the Marlins actually beat the Phillies. He called them bottom feeders. They wear bottom feeder T-shirts.
I love that.
press conference yesterday, the Zoom call. Bottom feeders. They know who they are. They're embracing who they are. They don't care that they're an underdog here. They're 7-0 all-time in postseason series. That's the number that they're going with more than any other number.
And they were an underdog last week, too. So it's not anything unusual for them to be able to adapt and overcome and handle things the way they have. Man, it's remarkable because growing up, I've been a Braves fan my whole life. To see the Marlins have more World Series than the Braves, it's still mind-boggling to me. I still have a hard time with that.
Infuriating.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And to that point, though I do believe the Braves will win the series, and my guess would be 4 games. I don't know how you guys feel about that. The Marlins look at it as, like you said, we're going to go after the Braves, and we're not going to back down. We're the bottom feeders. We're going to wear it like a chip. It's like Michael Jordan a little bit. You know how Jordan used whatever it took? He would make up things to have a chip on his shoulder. That's what
it's house money for them.
Yeah,
that's the way I see it. And coming into the season, I was definitely wasn't ready to go where Ricky Metallico went, but after seeing them for the first time, seeing the hurdles that they had to clear right out of the gate in the season with all the COVID-related issues that they had and playing so many games on the road and winning, I thought to myself, well, this isn't what we saw last year or the year before that or the year before that. I didn't expect this.
Yeah.
I didn't expect them to be a better team in the standings than the Phillies.
Well, that's why the Phillies general manager, by the way, he can say he stepped down or whatever.
Right.
He got fired because the Marlins were in the postseason and the Philadelphia Phillies aren't.
If that's the Nats or the Mets, I don't know if it's the same fate for
It's a conversation,
Clintack.
but I guarantee it was over once the Marlins made it.
Right.
And by the way, look, sub-500 team making a postseason and advancing. As I like to say, I'm looking up, the sky still hasn't fallen.
Yeah.
So it's not ideal, and it's 16 too many. Let people argue that during the offseason, and as we go forward and figure out in a collective bargaining agreement what's supposed to be the right number, if this is it. I do like best of 3. I like it better than 1.
Me too.
You know, in theory, I like the 1 because it's all lose and go home. But it's not really the way that baseball's meant to be.
Right.
You know, it really doesn't feel like it should be a one and done.
Yeah.
It should be
It's a marathon.
And by the way, in 5, I don't care what happens in any of these series. Somebody wins 3 games before the other guy. You found a way. Now, you can tell me you booted it away, you threw it away, you lost it, they didn't win it. I don't care what it is. Best of 5, even before we get to best of 7, might not be the best team on paper, but the team that gets the 3 wins first has earned the right to move on. And that's all that matters in sports.
That's right.
It's all. There's nothing else that matters other than I was better than you in moments that led me to me moving on and you packing your bags and going home and leaving a bubble.
Yeah.
This is the Braves postseason preview show here on the Fan, 680 and 93.7 FM, as well as on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. We appreciate you spending time with us there. We will come back and welcome Mark DeRosa to the show at 7:30, so just a little over the 15 minutes from now here on the Fan, 680 and 93.7 FM.
Hey, Atlanta, it's Front Office Lowe's for entry point.
This is the 2020 postseason preview, only on the home of the Braves, The Fan.
Welcome back. Braves postseason preview here on The Fan, 680 and 93.7 FM, as well as on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. Here in about 15 minutes, Mark DeRosa from MLB Network will join us and talk about the Braves and the Marlins. So where do we go from here? You guys want to lead off? We'll talk with start with pitching, because I feel like that's where the biggest focus for the Braves is, right? You got a pitching staff that's really, really young, and so do they.
That's the aspect of this series that I'm most excited about, to be quite honest. And I think I would have anyway, Chris. But after what I saw from Fried and Anderson in games 1 and 2, it got me even more fueled up. And I'm thinking about these young pitchers and guys that we could see competing against each other within this division for years to come. All three of the pitchers of the Marlins are throwing out there, I like all those guys.
And Sanchez needed a little bit of a bounce back. He had two, he had two lousy starts after 5 incredible starts to open it up. So he comes back and does his job. And Alcantara, they ensured that the bullpen didn't really become a factor against the Cubs, where you go, veteran hitters late in games, a bullpen that's a little bit shaky. Well, I think the bullpen only had to throw 6 innings.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you sort of diminish the amount of moments that they could lose, diminish the amount of outs that they had to get because of Sanchez bouncing back. And Alcantara's, I don't even know if anybody, really, unless you're a diehard baseball fan who's not a fan of maybe this division. Do you think people know him? Because
I don't think so.
I don't either.
We've seen him 3 times. He's got no record against the Braves, but he's been really tough. He's got a 2.45 career ERA against Atlanta. That game 1 matchup with Alcantara and Fried, I think, is awesome. You win that ball game, you're feeling really good about the series. If you're the Marlins, and I've never really bought into this theory, but now that I'm thinking about it, it makes some sense, where game 1 could be more important for one team than the other, and it could be that way for Miami. Just to prove that, hey, we didn't just luck our way into this.
Well, I think Bauer, I think for the Reds, I think everybody said Cincinnati. For all the people who picked Cincinnati, I still heard that thing of, but they better get a win out of Bauer. They better get a win out of Bauer. For everybody who was going to think they were going to be right, to maybe give them a better chance to be right about picking the Reds, if Bauer didn't win, I think a lot of those people, all of a sudden, that pick didn't look as good.
Right.
They were banking on Bauer winning. I think the Reds needed Bauer to win, and we found out what happened when he didn't.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's exactly right. And Bauer's one of those guys that he wasn't pulling any punches even when he'd lost. That was the other thing. A lot of fans got their feathers ruffled a little bit because he walked off the mound chopping, and he's calling out
whatever.
Acuna or whatever. What were you about to say?
Well, game 1 is going to be great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the pitching matchup. Game 2 is so interesting to me because you got Pablo Lopez and Ian Anderson. We have no idea what we're going to see, Tug, because on one hand, for Pablo Lopez, start with him. He's been good against the Braves anytime the series has been in Miami. He's been great against the Braves down there. It's been a house of horrors for him here at Truist Park. He pitched the night where the Braves scored 29 runs. Now, he went out there the next go-around against Atlanta, fared much better, so he's a tough pitcher, but you don't know what you're going to get out of him. I'd say the same thing for Ian Anderson. As brilliant as he was, Chris, and as good as he's been, it's still a guy with 7 major league starts to his career, pitching his second postseason game, so who knows what we get that night.
Yeah, the Lopez thing, here's where I think advantage Braves, and I was asking you during the break. I've been in Minute Maid Park when it was empty. I went in, I got an opportunity to go in when the Super Bowl was in Houston. I just said, okay, hold on, see if I can get in the building, and I did. And it feels small. And I think advantage Braves, it is kind of crazy to think about bubble, neutral site, that how's it going to play? There are people already, and I'm not telling you I understand park factors, because it turns into decimal points, percentages, and math, and I have no interest in trying to figure out it's a -6, +6.
Nobody else does either.
No, but I read them all. I read them all today, like as to what each park that's involved in these playoff games is. What Arlington is only 30 games in, too small a sample size, and that's what you're hearing. They're probably right. But I do think an inherent advantage for the Braves in Minute Maid Park, a home run hitting team that has an opportunity based upon everything. And this is fly ball outs. They look at every out. Like, that's part of what the ballpark factor is, and I think these people look at every fly ball out, and they determine, would have been out in this ballpark.
Right.
And the Braves had a much bigger number over Miami, and balls that weren't out that would be out in Minute Maid. And to me, with Lopez, I don't know if it's in Miami he gets to pitch to a bigger place, and here he can't. I would think the Lopez thing on paper, pitching in Minute Maid, is advantage Braves before they even see Game 1.
Right.
I think walking into this series, I like the matchup of the Braves having an ability to hit more home runs in Minute Maid than they even hit here.
Because the obvious thing is, well, of course the home team has the advantage. But even without fans in Miami, I would say playing those guys down there, it'd be an advantage for them because this Braves ball club's a team built to hit the home run.
Yeah.
The ball doesn't fly out of the ballpark down there. So now you're talking about playing on a neutral site where the ball, especially the left field, flies. And really all over that yard it flies, but especially the left field. For a home run hitting team in a day and age where the home run ball is so enormous, that might be the biggest advantage for Atlanta.
Yeah, and the other part of that is that you got Freddie and Ozuna. They're going to put it out anywhere. It doesn't matter where they play. But some of the smaller guys like Albies and Swanson.
Well, Dansby had 6 balls that they said he hit here that would have been out there. He led. I might have been all 8 teams. 4 series where one guy, his ballpark compared to the ballpark he's going to be playing in. I think Dansby might have had more balls not out here that would have been out in Minute Maid. Or more balls, I think, actually, for the 60 games. It was 6 that weren't out in the ballparks he played in that would have been out in Minute Maid. So that, I think there's some reality to that. I don't like getting bogged down on all that stuff. You pitch what you pitch. This is the ballpark. I think if you start pitching to the ballpark, you're going to get goofed up, especially if you're a young guy. I hope Ian Anderson doesn't look at the wall. Now, he pitched in Fenway, and this was Fenway Light. Fenway feels really small. Yeah. This was a little bit bigger than that. But if you try pitching to the ballpark, I think you're going to get mind blanked anyway.
Sure.
So I think it's supposed to be I'm pitching to the batters, I'm pitching to the report.
Right. And look, we've seen guys the last few years in Verlander and Cole have no problem with that ballpark. So if you're locating, it doesn't matter who's up there. The good pitch is going to be the good hitting. But I do like that for a home run hitting team being in a home run friendly ballpark.
Give you one other thing that I think the ballpark does. You know, you don't know the ballpark. There are some guys that don't know it well. There are other guys who know it a little bit better. There's a real workout to me. When there's that, I'm just going to go get loose and we're going to go take BP, and guys are just going to be able to sort of get a feel for things. But I think in a place like this, if you haven't played it much, if you're a left fielder and you haven't played that wall, center field's a little bit bigger. What do? I think Monday, workout day, is really more important in some places than others. I think Houston is one of those places.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny. You see Coach Washington is out there with the infielders. I would imagine they're going to have to do something very similar with the outfielders, right? To get them prepared for what the outfield.
Well, you want
like.
bounces. You see, you roll balls into a corner. You see what the ball does. Some stadiums have a little bit more jut. The stands, what do they do?
Yeah.
And you will literally see guys just rolling balls into the corner to see what the bounces actually look like.
Yeah. So familiarity with the Marlins here is going to be so much better for the Braves. They already feel like they can beat the Marlins. They have beat the Marlins.
But Don Mattingly, see, I like what Don Mattingly said. It was very succinct. Yeah, we don't go into any series now thinking we're not going to win it. And you don't need to go any further than that. He doesn't have to explain why they feel that way.
No, right.
They're allowed to feel that way now.
Of course they are. And that what a great thing to say, because your guys are going, okay, manager believes, I should believe too. Although you're in the playoffs, you probably don't need anybody to tell you. You know you're there.
Well, and if you're Miami, it's a clean slate.
Yeah.
I think you have to take whatever angle that you think is the most positive angle for you do. If I'm Miami, I say, well, what happened during the regular season, dropping 6 out of 10? That has nothing to do with this.
Nope.
I got to go take 3 or 5. Clean slate for me. On the other side, this is the same thing with the Yankees-Rays series. Rays took 8 of 10, I think, versus New York.
That's right.
Yankees could say, well, that's a different lineup that we had during the regular season. We're healthy now. So it's a clean. The losing team, the disadvantaged team, can say clean slate, and this is no big deal for us. For the Braves, you can say, well, we're prepared for these guys, and I think that helps a lot, Chris, especially with your pitcher-catcher meetings and scouting for a lineup. A little bit easier against a team you saw 10 times versus a Cubs team that you have not seen at all this year.
So it's cliche, but you're one bad bounce away from actually having something bad happen to you. You're 1 3-run home run away from going, okay, what just happened? Whether it's Dickerson or somebody else, all of a sudden you go, oh, wait. They're not a home run hitting team, but they just put 3 up on the board with 1 swing. If you walk a guy, something doesn't happen. You don't turn a double play. Everybody knows that's what happens in the game. How clean a game can you play? And you mentioned Verlander. It's interesting because in Houston, he just said, here's the solo. 36 homers. A guy gave up 36 home runs last year, and he won the Cy Young Award because what he said is, okay, here, eat the fat one. I didn't want you to do it, but I can live in that world because I'm not going to give you 3 singles and a double in an inning.
Yeah.
The best pitchers don't do that. The giving up 1 to a guy where you go, what just happened? Well, that's 3.
Right.
That's the stuff that you have to avoid from a team like Miami.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun. It's going to be entertaining. But I go back to, it seemed like the Braves beat Miami more than 6 times. You know, I don't know if it's just because I'm trained to believe that we always beat Miami. And what is it, last season when, I mean, we beat them how many times?
15
of
19.
Whatever
Ask the Phillies what the difference is.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Because they didn't.
Yeah.
What about the idea, you know what hasn't really been talked about? Here's what the home field advantage gets you. The Braves are the home team in 1, 2, and 5. Remember, when you're at home field in the first round, you're the home field team. You get it all for 3 games if you needed it. This goes back to old school. The Braves will be the team hitting in the bottom of the ninth, 1, 2, and 5 if necessary. So that's where the advantage comes in here in the neutral ballparks.
Yeah, no, I look forward to it.
I think to your point, Tug, the reason it feels like it was a lot more lopsided than maybe it sounds. When you beat them, you beat them.
Yeah.
I mean, the run differential is huge. Even if you take away the 29-9 game, even if you eliminate that plus 20 that one night, it's still a pretty sizable run differential that you had over Miami.
68-44 run differential is what it was.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a beating.
Do you know what that game marked? Remember the 29 runs? You know what that was?
Yeah, he called it.
No, but the first night of. You remember what that was the first night of? Lineup-wise.
Oh, Freddie Freeman batting 2?
Yeah, Acuna, Freeman, Ozuna.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first night that we actually, September 9th, I think, is what it was.
You scored 29 runs.
You scored 29 runs the first time you tried it out. You go, hey, you think Freddie's going to hit second tomorrow? Yeah, I do, as a matter of fact. I think Ozuna's going to hit third, too. That was the first night that they had that lineup in play. And it's, remember, when Ozzie comes back, he hit ninth for a couple of games. And we all said, okay, look, he got hot. We're going to move him up in the lineup.
Yeah.
So it worked out perfectly. If you're going to lose Ozzie and you still win the division and you get not the 154 version that was the guy he was before he got hurt, watching him hit a 9-hole and all of a sudden finding a groove and going, well, this is going to be easy. Move him up, move him up, move him up. Boom. Now we got a better lineup.
Right.
Yeah, that was one of those things when they moved Freddie to the 2-hole, I remember even thinking, scratching my head a little bit because it looked so awkward. It looked so different. And if you would have said, 3 or 4 days before that, hey, they're going to move Freddie to the 2-hole, I'd have been like, no, what? You're going to keep him in the 3. It's where he hits. Mm-hmm. And to see it do differently and be laid out differently, I think is pretty eye-opening to how baseball's changing.
Well, and especially with a DH. I mean, that's why you can do this. Without a DH, he stays batting third. But with a DH, and you have somebody you can hit in the 9-hole that's not a pitcher who can get on base, then, okay, yeah, he's batting 2 the first go through. But once you start to flip that lineup card around, whether it's Dansby, Ozzie, Riley, all those guys spend time batting ninth, and all of a sudden that's a formidable hitter, and Freddie becomes the 3-hole hitter again.
Look, this is not Little League where you go, oh, Jimmy hits ninth.
Jimmy's terrible.
If I'm a guy in the Braves and you ask me what would you rather hit, 7th, 8th, or 9th, I want to hit 9th. I got Ronald Acuna and Freddie Freeman behind me.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind. I said, Nick Markakis hitting 9th didn't make sense. He's going to take his at-bats the same way no matter who's hitting behind him. I think whether it's Austin Riley or anybody else, I legitimately, I'm not kidding. Look, it's not embarrassing at this level. You're a major leaguer, and it's not 10-year-old travel ball where somebody's got to hit 9th. Oh, boy, he's hitting 9th. I'd rather hit 9th.
Well, you've got protection, like you mentioned, with Acuna. And think about who's been hitting 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are guys getting on base.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'm coming up to the plate with guys on base, and I'm getting another fastball that maybe I don't get because I got Acuna behind me.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's been a pleasure to see. And the DH is something that I never expected that I would like. And maybe it's because I grew up in watching National League Baseball on TBS, and that's the only thing I knew. So I remember when they were like, we're bringing the DH to the National League this year, and I was reluctant to like it. And I can't help but say that as we went through the season, I never even noticed that the pitcher didn't hit anymore. It was so different for me. But now I've experienced it, I'm wrapping my arms around it. Love it.
Well, I think it's okay to be fine with both, because I think we love the game of baseball, and while it is a little bit of a different strategy, one side or the other, I think you can embrace both. I mean, if they told me tomorrow you're going back to pitchers batting, I'd say, okay, well, I enjoyed watching the strategy of who's going to pinch hit late in the game, what kind of moves you're going to make. But this has been fun. I know it's been a lot easier on some of these managers not having to push those buttons late like you normally would, night in and night out, and obviously giving the lineup a lot more depth and rolling through top to bottom.
Yeah, I'm pitchers hitting. Thank you. Go away. Because I've always thought there was a strategy in when you use your DH, who it's going to be, where you hit him in a lineup, why are you using him. I thought everybody sold that short. Unless you had Greg Luzinski, unless you had Softball Joe, who was just going to hit fourth and try to hit bombs, and that's not really it. It's an athletic game now.
Right.
We saw Mookie Betts DH and lead off for the Dodgers in September because that's a strategy. And, it's not about the double switch. That was the whole thing where, oh, my gosh, they got to pull a double switch. If you can't pull a double switch, you're not even supposed to be anywhere near the ballpark anyway. So that was never really a big thing for me. The facing 3 batters is more like Rick Renteria the other day. You see what he had to do? Mm-hmm. He had to walk a guy intentionally because that was the third batter to get a guy out. I said, holy smoke. I don't think you should have to face 3 in a postseason. You want to do that in the regular season, that's fine. I think that's really, you're telling me what I have to do to win a baseball game in October, and I don't like that at all. The manager of the White Sox walked a guy because that guy hadn't faced 3 guys. He'd only faced 2.
Right.
To get the pitching matchup he wanted, he had to intentionally walk a guy.
And use 9 guys to get through 9 innings of a game. I think the furthest any pitcher went was an inning and 2/3.
Pulled
maybe
a starter after 2/3.
2/3 of an inning. And it's funny that you mentioned that because as much as we saw pitching changes, matchups left, right, and it delaying games, you know what I think did this more than anything was the Brewers-Dodgers series in the postseason a few years ago, where they started a guy for 1 out,
right,
and then brought in their starter
to get a lineup, and then all of a sudden you go, well, here you go, you got to do what you're going to do for the next 8 2/3.
Right, and I think at that point baseball thought, oh, we have to intervene, because now at that point you're using one pitcher for 1 out to completely manipulate what another manager does with his lineup top to bottom.
Which, by the way, that's a you problem.
Right.
Because I think manipulation and actually okie-dokieing a guy has always been a part of sports. If you fall for it or you can't handle it, that's a you problem, not mine.
There you go. This is the Braves postseason preview show on the Fan 680 93.7 FM, as well as on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. Appreciate you checking out the show tonight. And when we come back, we'll invite Mark DeRosa from MLB Network to the show here on the Fan 680 93.7 FM. Doug Cowart, Chris Domino, and Ben Ingram here on the Braves postseason preview show on the Fan 680 93.7 FM, as well as on the YouTube channel. Appreciate you spending time with us this evening, bringing Mark DeRosa onto the show. Mark, what's going on with you, pal? Maybe not. All right, so while we wait, we'll get Mark on in just a minute. He's a local guy, lives here in town, played for the Braves a bit, now MLB Network. He's done quite well for himself.
Yeah, quite a handsome fella on top of everything else. He's parlayed those New Jersey boyish good looks into a career on television, and that Penn education. Let's make sure that we do mention that as well.
Don't leave that part out. Have you spent some time with D-Ro?
A little bit. We had him on our show during the quarantine. And we were able to talk more about his quarterback days at Penn.
Yeah. Okay,
I mean, that was fun.
Yeah, right. Mark, how are you, bud?
I'm doing great, guys. I'm in my playoff bunker. There's not too much lighting here. I'm going to keep it real. I walked around my 1-bedroom apartment trying to find the best spot, and this is the best I could come up with.
Hey, D-Ro, what's been the place that actually has delivered more to your 1-bedroom apartment than any place else food-wise during this second stint up in New Jersey?
Chipotle.
Yeah.
Without question, Chipotle, double meat, chicken, the whole deal. You know, hey, Chris, you would laugh. I got 40s, 50s, 30s, 20s dumbbells laying right here. I'll go right on the ground and pound out a set.
Please tell me there's like a weight belt in there too somewhere. The big leather weight belt.
Those days are over.
Yeah. He used to use a belt and chalk. Those days are long gone.
Right, that's so good.
So, D-Row, what did you think about when you heard more people, and it really was, there was an accumulation, MLB Network, the Four-Letter Network, a bunch of writers, columnists. It really did lean 50% plus on Cincinnati in that first round.
Yeah. They were the hot, sexy team all year. Everyone was waiting for them to catch fire. Everyone thought that they could take down potentially the Cubbies, which I agreed with at the time. But listen, I am a little biased. I don't get to play it on TV as much as I'd like to. I know the hearts of half of the guys. I know Snit well. I know when something special is potentially brewing. These guys really seem to really like being around each other, the core group. And, you know, I'll tell you what, I know it's a pretty bold statement, but I think I played with one of the greatest Braves to ever put it on in Chipper Jones. And, man, if Freddie ain't right there, like he approaches every AB for me like he's the best hitter in the game. It's crazy because to kind of watch him come up as a young guy and become the modern Chipper Jones for the kids in the Georgia in the state of Georgia and in the Southeast.
D-Row, do you think that people now are finally seeing like nationwide what we've been seeing for the last several years and coming to the understanding that this guy is a superstar? We should be paying more attention to Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, I don't think they were. You know, even in the All-Star game, I think Acuna, he stole a lot of the thunder coming up, and rightfully so. I mean, just a special dynamic talent. I think when Freddie collects this MVP here in a couple weeks, I think the whole world's going to know. Certainly, listen, at the end of the day, it's nice to have the fans and the national notoriety, but he's got the total respect of his peers.
And you need one of these.
Respect in his bank account. Yeah, no doubt. And he's going to get one, Chris. He's going to get one. This team's too stacked and built to do special things. I mean, you could say if they had Soroka and healthy and rocking and rolling, that they could be potentially, knocking down the Dodgers here in the NLCS.
So I know this about you because there's a baseball IQ. There's a grittiness. There's a grind mentality. I was never this, but I'll find a way to beat you. I'll take an extra base. I'll make sure I was playing where I was supposed to be playing. I'm going to go back, and I've said it now a couple of times. That day that Fried hurt his ankle, and he was telling everybody he wanted to stay in, and he talked to a couple of guys. It was Freddie Freeman who went over, put one hand on a knee, and basically and Fried didn't do much talking, and rightfully so. He got up right after that conversation and left, as if the whole explanation was, do you not remember we clinched last night? This is not about you in this game today. This is next week when we play whoever it is we're going to play as a 7 seed. And I thought that was the moment, D-Row, and I know you appreciate this stuff. When you're looking around a dugout and you're trying to figure out in a locker room, you in San Francisco, you in Washington, who are the guys? You have to have a moment where you prove you're the guy. Freddie Freeman to me that night, if I didn't know it or if I didn't see it publicly, that was the night that he proved he was the guy in this team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think inside, I think maybe to the rest of the world, people saw it. I mean, obviously, it's you guys know, Chris. I mean, my best boy in life is Brian McCann, and he got a chance to put the Braves uni back on. And he's like, D-Row, the pillar of this organization, everything runs through our first baseman, Freddie Freeman. I mean, when Donaldson was kind of acting up early in the year, it was Freddie who locked him in, like, hey, you're either with us or get out of here. And he jumped on, took out the umbrella and went to work. So the only team that I ever played on in my career where it truly went through one guy was in St. Louis when I got traded over in 2009, and just kind of everything. What time's the hitters meeting? Hey, when Albert says. Hey, what time's BP start? When Albert says. You know, I know Snit's too much of a Bobby disciple to ever let it get to that point, but it begins and ends with Freddie.
But that's the other thing about it is Freddie Freeman, I don't think he cares about that notoriety. I mean, does he want to win MVP? Of course. Does he want to win a World Series? Of course. But you said Acuna took a little bit of his thunder away. I don't think Freddie even cares about that. Do you?
No, I don't. I think bring on every good player in the game. I mean, such player development, such scouting, such draft. I mean, what they've been able to accomplish is see these young guys come up the Albies, the Acuñas, I mean, on down the line. Look at it. Ian Anderson, Soroka, freed in a trade. It's pretty crazy what they've been able to put together, and it's built to sustain. And listen, I played for Alex Anthopoulos. What a difference playing for John Sherholtz and Alex Anthopoulos. I mean, you couldn't get two more different personalities walking through a clubhouse. John kept his distance, because if he had to pull the trigger on a move, it wasn't personal. It was see you later and we're moving. Alex is coming in asking the opinions of players. What do you think? Do you think this guy would fit in the clubhouse? What do you think about, like, he was constantly engaged with the heartbeat of the locker room, which and he's made moves accordingly. So I've always been a huge fan of him from my days in Toronto.
You're talking about everything going through Freddie. I mean, that's another aspect where you got value, because you're talking about Alex asking the opinions of different guys. Can you imagine Freddie in the offseason getting a phone call from Alex Anthopoulos? What do you think about this guy? What do you think about that guy? Because it would take his stamp of approval, would it not?
Well, I think the only reason Brian McCann got to put that Braves uniform on is because Freddie Freeman wanted him in that clubhouse. So, yeah, and listen, some guys earn that right. We're playing in today's generation where, in my opinion, a lot of the young guys, they still have to earn some of the stuff I see on TV, or the way they carry themselves in social media and the things they say. It's a different time now, but I still believe that, yeah, Alex has the utmost respect for one thing about Freddie too that doesn't get stated enough. Check the games played. He never is out of the lineup. He never takes a day. I mean, last year in the postseason was devastating for me to watch as a friend, because I knew he had to be just completely, his elbow had to be mangled for him to put up a series like that against the Cardinals.
Let me ask you something about the series, because on paper, we had talked about it at first or second segment. It really does set up in a neutral field for both of these teams. Advantage Braves in Minute Maid from a home run hitting team. Somebody did the fan graphs that I read, and the Braves would have had 22 more home runs if they played their 60 games here, balls that were outs and other places. But I really think, before anything happens, and baseball's so goofy, you throw it out into the universe, and Lord knows the opposite could happen. But if you think about this series being played at Minute Maid, this really is advantage Atlanta before they ever do anything, correct?
I mean, how long you been doing this, Chris? Because you're stealing my thunder for tomorrow's show. It's exactly what I was working on with the research department. I'm like, I want to know how much better the Astros hitters hit in Minute Maid as opposed to going on the road. Then I want you to look at Marcell Ozuna, because he's a pull monster. Adam Duvall pulls everything. And Freddie Freeman can go oppo with the best of them. So I think that's a very understated kind of angle of this game. I believe that, listen, the Marlins are a great story. The whole bottom feeders thing is unbelievable, and they got talent for days. I did the 30-30, and it just looks like they got a football team coming. But they ran into a very, very poor Cubs offense this year. They were bad all year. Outside of Jay Hay and Ian Happ, they didn't hit all season long, and it continued. The Marlins are walking into, and I think they got a ton of respect for the Braves, but they're walking into the best offense in baseball, potentially.
Dear, let me ask you about this. We were just discussing this before he came on. Miami drops the season series to Atlanta. So for them, they can say, well, clean slate. That has nothing to do with anything. How much do the Braves go to that knowing that we've seen this team, we've had a lot of success against this team, scored 29 runs against this team one particular game? How much of an advantage is that for Atlanta?
I think you always respect the teams that get in, but you fear no one. I mean, I always kind of went, yeah, I think anytime you can get a look, especially the bullpen weapons, the Sixto Sanchez's who just came up and made a bunch of starts late. I think anytime you can get in a box, because you can watch as much video as you want, but until you see what his heater does in real time, how much sink, how much run, how much ride, life through the zone, his breaking stuff, is it sharp, is it not? You can only pick that up in the box. And these guys, and vice versa, Marlins guys are going to be pretty comfortable, I would feel like. But the Braves offense just doesn't. It really, it's pretty awesome to watch. It's no let up.
Dero, who's the guy for the Braves that is going to, outside of the pitching, who's the guy that's going to blow us away? Who's the guy that's going to be the one that helps the Braves get through this? And maybe even give us on the Marlins side, who's got to be that guy if they want to beat the Braves?
I think for me, the Marlins got to find some type of offense. They got to figure out a way. I think their starters will be able to keep the Braves at bay, but not realistically. I'm talking 4 to 5 runs. So how can the Marlins score runs? A guy like Corey Dickerson, someone like that, is going to have a monster series. And against Max Fried, that's probably out the window.
And the Marte thing, again, still
I killed them.
Yeah, it is a game changer, series changer, no doubt about it. In just not only the ability, but I think he's been around long enough where you go, look, I don't expect them to go, oh, my God, we don't have him. What are we going to do? There's none of that going on at this level. But him being out of that lineup, if he can't go, that's about as big a swing as you can get before the first pitch.
I'd like to see Acuna put on a show. I really would. And something that interests me, too, and I read it a little bit today, is the potential, if this thing goes to 4 games, that the Braves could potentially run a bullpen game at them, which is kind of, I wouldn't think that would be something Snit would do in his old days.
You mean his 40 years in the game, he's going to have to drop that?
He's going to have to drop a bullpen game because, honestly, that they're a massive reason why they're even standing in this position.
Yeah.
They've been the most, if you're going to group, I got this infield, I got that outfield. In the National League, we've talked about it. There was a stretch before Freeman, I guess Ozuna, and Tatis certainly was in it. I could have named the Braves bullpen the MVP of the National League. And I just would have said collectively, here's the most important group for a 60-game season, whatever a 60-game season is. And I think when it ended, we could have said, I don't think there was any group that did more to help their team more than the Atlanta Braves bullpen.
I just think back. It's a great point. I just think back to the day I watched Mike Soroka, because anyone compete, you knew instantly what that was. That was Achilles, and he was out for the year. I just remember being so sad. I'm like, here's this team, and they're going to put everything in rally and hope to God that Cole Hamels comes back and gives you a couple starts. But it was just like, I felt like we can sugarcoat this as much as we want, but it was a dagger. Back to roost. And Ian Anderson showed up.
Wow.
Max Fried decided to turn into Tom Glavine with wipe out stuff. And I was like, oh, maybe.
And I know you know the history of this team, and Ben did a bunch of pre-games. And I said the most unfair thing that I think I've said in 27 years, Ian Anderson was 3 starts into his career, and we knew what was going to happen. He had to be good to be slated into 2 or 3 behind Fried. And what is it I kept saying? I'm going to ask this guy to be Steve Avery. And it's so ridiculously stupid to think a guy 6 starts into his pro career was going to be Steve Avery.
I mean, I guess when you throw 95 and have a funny changeup, and we'll mix in the occasional curveball, and it's funny. Some of these young guys break into the big leagues and they're just so polished, and other guys break into the big leagues and you're like, wow, they've just been rushed through the system super quick. He just presents himself
confident.
Well, how about him throw any?
He starts against the Yanks, Chris.
Yeah, he'll throw the changeup though. Anytime, like 22-year-olds having a changeup is rare. How about the fact that Ben, this guy will go here. This is going to be my out. You're going to roll over. You're actually not going to know what to do with this at 22 years old to even have that pitch. Let it be a good one.
First inning of the game. Here's everything.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't show up, it's a great story. The Braves had a great year. They probably get knocked out. He changed everything. It would have been Max Fried and hang on, because Kyle Wright at the time was really scuffling him. He's since rallied, so we'll see in Game 3. But Ian Anderson has changed the narrative for the Braves, that they could throw 2 monsters out on the mound, get to the bullpen, and then let the offense do its thing, and you still got a chance to win the whole thing. If he doesn't emerge, I think we can try and dive around it as much as we want, but I thought it would catch up in the end.
The funny thing about it is the Braves have relied on hitting all season and the bullpen, but the most Braves thing is to have such a solid pitching staff, and for those 2 kids to really show up, that's the most Braves thing that could have happened this year.
Well, I don't believe in my heart that you can run out 5 or 6 pitchers a night and think they're all going to be good. I just don't see it. I mean, San Diego, they were able to rattle that off for one night. They had to. It was desperation against a bad offense, and they were able to get it done. I don't think you consistently make a game plan at 1 o'clock in the afternoon saying, I'm going to go A, B, C, D, E, and G, and we're going to allow one run. Because one guy is going to be bad.
Right.
I mean,
it's bad math to trot out 6 guys and believe it's going to work for any period of time. How about we all do this? We'll all ask you one question about one of the other series. I just want to ask the Yankees-Rays, this version of the Yankees. Here they come. The big bad boogeyman is now here because they hit home runs again. I don't know if there's a better matchup than the Rays starting pitching against this version of the New York Yankees. How do you like the series?
I like this. I'm leaning towards the Rays, Chris, because of the no off days. I mean, putting the eyeballs on both teams the entire season. The Yankees, I mean, Garrett Cole goes without question. Tanaka, to me, listen, he's been a big game pitcher for a long time, but this stuff is not elite stuff. It's the type of stuff that I think Tampa can put second and third a couple times and see what happens. Jay Happ, who pitches game 4? I think Kevin Cash goes into this series knowing full well on paper, like, here's what I'm doing at any given point, where I feel like Aaron Boone's still going in like, I hope a few things break my way and we hit some tanks.
All right, stay there in the American League. Let me ask you about the Astros, because the A's are this fun team to watch. I think the longer they hang around in the postseason, the more the people are getting to know them because they hardly saw them in the regular season. That said, as much as people hate it, is it good for the game as long as the Astros advance to have a villain hanging around like that deeper into the postseason?
I mean, now being 7 years removed from playing and working in TV, the Yankees-Astros is the ratings.
Yeah.
I mean, the A's, it's get your calculators and trapper keepers and keep score, because it's going to get ugly. But I enjoy both versions. I just think, listen, I did the 30-30 with the Astros as well. They were depressed, rightfully so. Like, going in there was a malaise about them. Like, I didn't know if Alex Bregman could come out of it. Altuve never really came out of it. Springer, what were these guys going to be like? And then they lose Verlander. But at the end of the day, like, the first 6 guys in their lineup are super talented. I mean, they beat up on Bassett today. I'm turning around right at the game's over. 10-5 Astros. So they're going to make it interesting. But I do believe the A's win this series.
See, that's interesting, because I would think the Astros would be able to use that as a chip. You know, this is what we got to do. We got to prove ourselves that we can win a postseason without banging on trash cans and that sort of thing. But for the A's to do it, they got to use some guys that are just blue collar fellas, right? I mean, it's not like they're full of stars.
I think they're very, not very similar to the Braves in any stretch, except the bullpen. I think their bullpen presents so many different options and weapons for Bob Melvin. Whereas Dusty Baker, I mean, I think he found some answers today in that Paredes kid, and we know Ryan Presley can get outs, but McCullers put him in a jam today where he had to find out, like, hey, is there a few guys in this pen that I can turn to and trust as this series progressed? Because he tipped his hand in Minnesota with just piggybacking starters.
So let's finish up with the Dodgers and the Padres. I got the team that's desperate to find their World Series finally for all the money they spend. I don't know about windows. Signing Bets tells me they certainly have a window. This version of Kershaw. But there's something about the Padres, whether it's the grand slam, whether it's the 3-run home run, whether it's the back-to-back with Tatis and Machado. Do you like, and I won't call it flash because they've been better than flash, but do you like flashier against the Dodgers, or do you like the Dodgers to finally put themselves in a position to really be the favorite that is the favorite moving forward?
Chris, if Clevenger and Lamet are healthy, I would lean San Diego, but I've watched too many Dodger games. The only person that's scaring me right now for the Dodgers, and that's the only one like on the 28-man roster, is Kenley Jansen. He's the only one that gives me, like, because I know Dave Roberts is going to give him the ball. Like, you have to, right? You have to. And he's going to live and die with him. He's the only one. He was throwing 88 miles an hour the other night. And that ain't, you put that in against the Braves in a big spot in the NLCS, that's getting hit and hit hard. So that's kind of the only thing that scares me. Outside of that, they are so deep and so balanced, and there's just too much there. So, no, I think if I was asked this question on the show today, who has the puncher's chance? I think San Diego's got a better puncher's chance than Miami does in the National League.
Because they hit home runs and 3 runs at a time.
Yeah, they got Tatis. I mean, he turned that whole series on a dime with one swing, and you saw the whole air come out of St. Louis. I feel like they have enough stars that you can put them on your back for a minute.
There you go, D-Ro. We appreciate you taking the time to come on the show, and we'll close with this. I understand your youngins are playing some baseball too, huh? With the Georgia Jackets, is that right?
Yeah, he had his first fall league game actually yesterday. We had to get him out of town, man. I had to get away from the politics and the daddy ball. It's time to grow up. Like,
that's right.
I had to push him 40 minutes outside where we live. I was getting a little frustrated. So let's see what happens.
To say the least. to say the least.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, man. We appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
Mark DeRosa here on the Braves postseason preview show here on the Fan 680 93.7 FM, as well as the YouTube channel.
Yeah, let me just ask you. So, who do you like in these 4 series?
Well, for the same reason he said, the Dodgers, and they're saying Clevenger might be cleared to go, but that's still a big might.
Yeah.
And Lamet probably
today,
not,
which is kind of strange.
Right.
He threw
a long bullpen today.
Right.
And they say he's feeling good, but still, I got to see it.
Yeah.
I think if they have Dinelson, Lamet, and Clevenger, you got a pretty good shot. But it's the Dodgers. And it just seems like it's their revenge year because they've been so close all these years, and now with everything that happened with the Astros, it just seems like they're thinking this is
the
their
only thing
time.
they haven't done is actually do it.
Right.
I see Kershaw punch out 13 guys in a playoff game, and I go, good Lord, I'm supposed to jump in with them and go, well, this must be it. The best team truly can be the best team. It's not just talk.
Right.
So you like the Dodgers.
I like the Dodgers.
What do you like in the Houston series?
I think I got to go with Houston. And for some of the same reasons that Tug was throwing out there, I like Oakland a lot.
Yeah.
The heart of me will be pulling for Oakland because I want to see that. But it just seems like Yankees, Astros are on this collision course. I think if you got them behind closed doors and asked them who would you like to play in the next round, I know it's taboo for them to say, but I think they'd see each other. I really do. And which is funny because the Yankees-Rays is a rivalry all its own.
Right.
I mean, with them headhunting all that they did this year,
nasty.
And what Kevin Cash said, and they've got that. And then to couple that with Houston on the backside would be, it'd be ratings.
If you're choosing, and you can't choose the Braves as the World Series, what's the ideal World Series? Yankees-Dodgers, right?
I think the TV execs would certainly tell you that. I mean, if you're asking me, give me the Padres and the A's.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, but you're not in the big building in New York City.
That's right.
And
That's
by
why
the
you're
way,
here with us.
Yankees race.
I'll go Yankees.
So you think the Death Star?
Yeah. Even though that they lost 8 out of 10 versus Tampa this year, I think that when it comes down to they weren't healthy most of the season. They didn't have this lineup most of the season. I think they're 100%. I'll take the Yankees.
Yeah, and obviously Braves, Marlins taking the Braves. That's an easy one.
And that's not even with any allegiance. I mean, that's just looking at it on paper. I think this is a series the Braves are supposed to win. No doubt about it.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so we'll take a break, and we'll come back here on the Braves postseason preview show on the Fan, 680 93.7 FM at 8 o'clock. We will welcome Braves GM Alex Anthopoulos to the show. We appreciate you spending time with us and hope you'll stick around.
In Houston, as the Braves take on the Miami Marlins, and Braves Nation is ready to roll.
1-1, swung on, lifted in the air to center field and deep. On the run, still running at the gate of the bullpen. That ball is gone. Home run, Dansby.
This is the Braves 2020 postseason preview with Tug Coward and Chris Domino, only on the home of the Braves, The Fan.
And we welcome Kevin McAlpin. He came in from East Marietta Little League. I mean, my man, you just literally came from practice.
Yeah, practice wrapped up about 45 minutes ago. Dropped the kid off at home, gave the baby a kiss, and said, "I got to go. Daddy's got to go to work." So here we are, ready to talk some baseball with you guys.
Absolutely. But that's where it starts, right? That's the reason we all love the game of baseball, because we all started doing the exact same thing. Dad taking you to practice, maybe dad's coach, who knows? But that's where the love of the game begins.
Well, I'll say this too. I made the mistake, guys, of saying to the coach, "Hey, if you ever need an extra set of hands around practice, just let me know."
Wow.
Well, then next thing I know, I get the jersey and I get the hat, and hey, you're an assistant coach. So I went from just saying, "Hey, I'll bring donuts and coffee in the morning," to perfect. You're the assistant coach now. So I stepped right into that role.
Chris, you ever fallen into that trap?
No, I'm not qualified. I know it.
Neither am I.
I know it. I have daughters, and no, I didn't need to. I have a hard enough time watching, let alone actually being actively involved, trying to make a decision during any of this.
Hold up. What do you mean you have a hard enough time watching?
I can't watch. I'm the worst.
What do you mean?
I got to be off by myself.
Like, because you're going to scream and holler?
No, the exact opposite. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't like screaming. I don't like parents who sort of get on kids and refs. And I'm not really. I'd rather, there's one or two parents that I really find myself congregating with, and we find ourselves moving over a little bit over the years.
Yeah.
By the way, and I'm not knocking anybody's got to do what they got to do when it comes to your kids and how you want to watch, but I'm too nervous about it. I really am.
That's interesting. Yeah, for me, like I'm pretty, like everything else in life, I'm pretty even keeled. Like, I don't yell at my kid. I don't yell at the ump. Every once in a while, if it's a horrible call, then be like, "Come on, Blue," hit him with that. But that's about it. And I think I used to get a little nervous when my son Jacob was playing, but these days, just it's totally changed, man. He knows more about the game than I do, like physically, from playing it from 8 all the way through now 16 and at a pretty high level. So, like, he knows the game inside and out. And I'll bring up things. I'll be like, "Here's what I see," or here's what I saw, and he's like, no, Dad, you missed it.
I promised my wife and my son the first day he stepped on the field, I wasn't going to be that dad. That it was,
nobody wants to be that dad.
Riding your kid or giving the umpire a hard time. I'm like, I'm just going to sit back and let him enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I mean, he comes to 30 Braves games this summer, so the kid knows the game. So I said, I'm just going to sit back and let him have his fun.
There you go. That's the way it should work right there. We already know that Houston gets the lead over the A's. That game done. So not exactly the way I expected it to start. I really thought the A's would be in the lead and would take the series altogether, and that may still happen. How do you see it?
Yeah, I see it a really competitive series. I mean, I see a lot of what we saw today, a lot of home runs, a lot of high-scoring games. A Houston team that sort of limped in, with a sub-500 record. But as we've talked about, Chris, you just got to get in the dance this year more so than any. I mean, you can talk about hot teams getting into the postseason, but when you have 16 teams, more than half of your ball clubs are getting into October, anything can happen. And we know the pedigree of that Houston Astros team. They can be a dangerous one if they heat up at the right time, and it seems like that time is now.
I'm not sure if anybody in Houston had a better year than they've had in the last few, which is why everybody said, okay, ding dong, the witch is dead, let's get him out. Well, all of a sudden you didn't throw enough dirt on. And I do think they beat Oakland. I thought going into the series they were going to beat Oakland because I just said there's 1, 3, 5 guys who can beat you on a given day. They just haven't all been beating you on a given day. But it does take 1, maybe 2, whether it's a Springer waking up, a Bregman. DeRosa was talking about Bregman. These guys all have an ability to beat you. And I like Houston in the series. I don't like them, but I do know from a storyline point of view, they're an incredible storyline. George Springer popping off after the first one. Look, you couldn't have actually set it up to not like them again where you go, hey, you know what, I didn't even think about them this year. There was no reason to. They're not going. Wait, they're in the postseason? Now all of a sudden you got to get your anger and your venom as a baseball fan ramped up. But again, they're not dangerous in the Marlins. Look at us, we're bottom feeders. But there's something about them that but they're supposed to be above that because they're already a World Series champ. But it's actually fallen back to the idea that we're looking to find anything. And the idea is if you hate us, tough, we're not going away.
Yeah, but that's what I brought up with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was a multi-time champion, and we learned that in The Last Dance, the documentary. He would make up things to have a chip on his shoulder. So I would think that having a chip on his shoulder is probably a good thing.
Why not, right?
Yeah.
And look, the Astros got off easy this year with no fans in the building. We know that.
Yeah, no doubt.
I don't know that that'll be the case next year when hopefully we let fans back into these buildings. I think that the feelings will still linger and folks will still have that ill will towards what they did, but they got off easy this year. That probably won't be the case in 2021.
We'll welcome the Braves general manager Alex Anthopoulos to the show. Alex, we appreciate your time. The experts, they bet against the Braves and they bet incorrectly. Not that any of us doubted, but it was good to get past the first series and now head into this series with the Marlins. I think our shots here are pretty good. We're looking pretty good this season to move even past this series. How do you see it, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always, I think this is just my demeanor with this job. I think it makes me stay, it allows me to not get complacent, stay competitive. But I look at it glass half empty with this stuff just to be competitive. I worry. And I like it when people don't pick us to win the division. That's happened 3 years in a row. We won the division. When most people pick the Reds, that worked out. We won. So I'd rather a bunch of people pick the Marlins. But I understand just based on we won the division and so on. But I will say this. We played 10 games. We won 6 of the 10. Other than that big blowout game, some of the scores were really close. They were one-run games, tight plays. We never faced Sandy Alcantara, who's their best starter and is their game one starter, in any of those 10 games. I think that's certainly going to be a factor. And I think the Marlins have started to really peak and play well together. Their bullpen, the back end of the bullpen, is really starting to throw the ball well with Kinsler, Yimi Garcia, Blyer, Hoyt, Boxberger. Those guys are doing a really nice job there, and the rotation clearly starting to come on, and they have tremendous speed. The first game that we played them in Miami, they embarrassed us. They ran us off the field, and they're very aggressive and very athletic. So I think the one thing we've talked about is I think we know how good these guys are, and I don't think we're going to underestimate them at all. But I expect it to be a really tight battle.
Alex, you know how tough it is to put a competitive team on the field year in and year out. How impressed, though, have you been with the job that the Marlins have done the last couple of years, adding that young talent, building that young core, and then adding those veteran pieces these last couple of years to get them to where they are here in 2020?
No, they've done a great job. And we were very concerned about the division coming into the year. The Marlins had been in a rebuild, but they really changed course this offseason. They went out and got some free agents. They spent some money. They supplemented the core. They made some additions at the trade deadline. And they finally, and that was the concern for us. Every team in the division this year was trying to win and trying to get to the postseason. Most years you have a year or two, you have a team or two that's retooling, rebuilding. Development is, more important than winning at that point. And that ultimately makes you feel a little better when you're playing those division games. But this was going to be a bear with all these teams contending and competing. So they've done a fantastic job. They've got a lot of really dynamic, young, athletic players, which I know was their plan and their model. And they've got power arms coming out of the rotation. So I know their GM well. And, he told me a year or two ago, he said, I'm expecting and hoping that it'll be our two clubs that are going to battle it out for a long period of time. And right now, at least in 2020, obviously we're certainly going to be at that point starting tomorrow.
Yeah, Alex, I'm a believer. You don't put out to the baseball gods who it is you want to play in the postseason, who it is you'd like to play in the next round, who it is you look ahead. I don't buy into any of that stuff. But if I was going to pick a ballpark that I'd like to drop the Atlanta Braves in, neutral ballpark with the 1, 2, and 5 in terms of home field advantage of being the team that hits in the bottom of the order, bottom of the ninth, I don't know if I would have picked, certainly I could think Cincinnati, maybe Philadelphia. But I think Houston really, before one pitch is thrown, does play into what it is you guys do. You got to learn the ballpark. You got to work out today. That you really have to make sure that your guys are comfortable playing in the outfield, and they know some of the juts in the corners. But from a ballpark point of view, I really would have probably dropped Atlanta and Houston pretty quickly as a choice.
Yeah, look, we've got a power hitting club like we saw in the Red Series. Though we need to make contact, right? And you can't get to that power if you're not putting it in play. So. This ballpark, and I think, like you said, there's a lot of spots. I remember when I was in Toronto and we had a good power hitting team and we went to go play the Royals, and getting to there, I was like, wow, this feels like you need to really drive the ball to hit it out. And it was a little intimidating where you felt like this isn't going to play to our strengths. There's no doubt with some of the dimensions, you can certainly drive the ball and have a lot of power. But like you talked about, the dimensions here are very challenging. And in a short period of time, with a lot of players that haven't played here, that's something that we've talked a lot about. There's really no way to fast forward that or microwave guys getting comfortable overall, and especially with the amount of speed that the Marlins have. If they get that ball up and it starts bouncing off the walls or rattling in the corners and so on, they might be standing on third base. So nothing you can do about that. But I do think that outfield play in this series will be a really underrated, critical part. You need the other components, still need to hit and pitch and all that. But I do think outfield play is going to be very important.
No doubt about it. Run differential, we talked about this a little bit earlier, between the Braves and Marlins this season is 68-44. Braves still need to pound the baseball, which we fully expect that they will do. Need a little bit more out of Travis d'Arnaud, 2 out of 9, 2 for 9 during the Reds series. How are we going to get him and the guys hitting the baseball like we need to?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Red series, Bauer was outstanding. He gets a 10 on 10 for his strut too. And, then you look at Luis Castillo right behind him, sitting 98, 99 pretty much the entire game. And that's not to make excuses for our guys, but I mean, you have one who's going to win the Cy Young and the other guy that's right there in terms of a frontline starter. And then they had great stuff coming out of the bullpen, but their starters were going deep into games and dominating. So I don't know that I view it as really singling out one guy on a 2-game series, 2-game sample. But obviously, one game, all of a sudden, guys can snap. And, we've seen it over the course of the year. You go on a 10-day road trip, game 1 and 2, guys might scuffle, and then 3, 4, 5, they might go off. So, hopefully we get to build a lot more of a sample of playoff games, and then we can look at all of it, whether that's d'Arnaud, Freeman, Ozuna, all of them. But really, generally speaking, other than right at the end of Game 2, we didn't hit much. And, that's as much a credit to the Reds because they did a fantastic job.
Alex Anthopoulos joining us here on 680 The Fan. Alex, I wanted to ask you about your rotation. We know Max Fried goes tomorrow. Ian Anderson goes Game 2. But I wanted to ask you about Kyle Wright and how encouraged you've been by him these last couple of outings. I mean, from a stuff standpoint, we've always known it's there. I think maybe part of it was between the ears at times with Kyle. But what have you seen these last couple of outings that gives you the confidence in him going out there and just the adjustments and the improvements he's made down the stretch here this season?
Yeah, just the ability to pound the zone and throw strikes. And, we had talked about it a lot. And obviously I've been on doing a lot of media interviews and so on. And we gave him 3 outings down in Gwinnett because we really wanted to make sure that he's continuing to build on having some success. And he's throwing a lot of strikes and pounding the zone and getting ground balls. And everything was sharper. And we finally felt like he's ready to go. He's ready for that next opportunity because obviously he was not in a good place when he went down. And that first outing was against Miami, and he went 4 innings, which was a step because in the past the wheels would fall off, and he still gave up runs and didn't throw well. But the fact that he was able to grind through some things and get through 4 was a big deal. It was a step for him. I know you look at the stat line in the box score, and you're thinking that's not much, but he was able to build on that. And then he goes to play the Nats, and he goes 6. And, he pitched a lot better than his line that day. Gave up the 4 runs, but there was some soft contact and so on. And then you follow that up with the game against the Mets, which was fantastic, and they're as good a lineup as you're going to face. So he kept improving. And then even the game against the Red Sox for 6 innings, he was just throwing a ton of strikes and then hit a little bit of a wall there and walked 3 guys in a row, I think. But he's made such tremendous strides that we do feel he's really turned the corner. And look, with the way the playoffs are set, depending on what we get out of Max and Ian, if we need to make a move early, we've got the depth in the bullpen to do it. So game 3 will be really what we do in Game 3. It's obviously going to be impacted by what happens in Game 1 and 2.
Alex, you made a note about the outfield play, and somewhere in this pile, I was writing a note to myself and asking a guy like, let's say, Pache, on a playoff roster where you might use him as a defensive replacement, what does your paperwork tell you? What is the mindset, the visual on top of everything else about Acuna playing in center as opposed to right? And can you, I'll use the word trust a young guy in a 4-3 game to go play the last couple of innings and really play the type of defense when he doesn't know the park and the spotlight's never been this bright on him? How do you make decisions like that between you and Snit of saying the roster spot is used because this is what we will do with him in that type of situation?
Yeah, we talked actually about that exact topic today. We had some meetings today with the staff of our advance, our prep. That was some of the discussion. We talked a lot about, late in the game, if you're doing things, you're putting Pache in center, Acuna in center. Obviously, Snit elected to keep Acuna in center in the Red Series and put Pache in right when he made that move. And I think that was just from a continuity standpoint. Ronald will primarily be in center field the bulk of the series. So do you slide him to right? Do you put Pache in center? Do you keep that continuity in center? I will say that the whole ballpark is challenging to play because of the dimensions. There's so many areas. But if you have to pick your poison, and the one that's the least challenging but still challenging itself is probably right field. And then you factor in the fact that, obviously with their speed, preventing guys from going first to third and so on. Obviously, Christian Pache's got a tremendous arm, but I would think and I would expect that the more reps and more experience that Ronald is getting in center field, there may be some benefit that to just leave one guy out there and get that continuity to continue to solidify things there because of how quirky this ballpark is and so on. So no guarantees of how Snit will play, but I think that's might be the lean at this point. That might change. But I think right now Snit's mindset, I won't speak for him, but just in initial conversations is to have that continuity with Ronald in center. And if we make some moves and a guy like Pache comes in, you'll probably see him like he did in the Red Series where he goes to right field.
I know these guys are professionals and they play the game at the highest level, but I think people listening are probably wondering the same thing. Like, how do you prepare guys for the dimensions of the outfield that when it's different, when it's not a park that they're used to? What are you guys going to be doing? What's the coaching staff going to be doing to get those guys ready to play in that position?
Yeah, and that's another thing that we talked about. So when we got there today, the roof was open. We've been told the roof will be closed because of the heat and the shadows and so on. So first thing we needed to do is make sure that roof got closed when we worked out today because balls are coming off the bat and outfielders are getting acclimated. You're trying to simulate the exact conditions that you're going to have. So made sure that we got that roof closed. And then you're just doing it. DeMarlo Hale's doing a ton of work getting guys comfortable. And again, there's only so much that you can do, but you're getting a ton of work out there, hitting balls off the wall, seeing how they react, how balls come off and so on. You're showing, clips, video, and so on of examples of things that have gone on. You're just trying to create a heightened awareness of it, not, create any maybe over-analysis, but just an awareness. The same way that we were very aware of the Reds, how aggressive they were in terms of their base running and so on, and be heads up about it and make sure guys are going to take the Nick Castellanos trying to get the third. Not a surprise.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't a surprise. That wasn't, whoa, where did that come from? We had talked about that extensively. Be ready, be on your toes. Certain guys, you have to hold old tags, things like that. So that's part of your advanced scouting process and so on. And look, all that stuff, you can do it till you're blue in the face. Once the game starts and the adrenaline starts flowing, players have to go out and execute and get it done. But the big thing from a front office standpoint, and I'm sure Snit would feel the same way, is you just want to feel like you're prepared. You've done everything that you could. You're prepared. Your R&D department, your advanced department. We gave everybody the information. You can't digest all of it. You can't remember all of it. And of all the reams of information that we have, 2, 3, 4 things that are critical and important, what are the things we're going to key in on? That's what you ultimately deliver to the players. You don't want to flood them, and then the rest is go out and play.
Alex, the Marlins. The Marlins know you. Is there an advantage to a series like this, or do you just throw it all out the window? I mean, it's a neutral site. It's a division rival. Is there an advantage to be had by knowing each other as you go forward, or is that just, that kind of goes out the window here in the postseason?
I don't know that there's an advantage other than maybe preparation. We hadn't played the Reds all year, so there's more work to be done. You're scrambling. You might, the fact that the players already have a baseline, the coaches already have a baseline, and then we'll continue to dig a little deeper than we already have, see if we can unearth more things and so on. But you do feel like you have a good foundation. Now, in the same breath, they have a great foundation on us. Right. They know us better than anybody. We played big series against them. So strictly from a time spent preparing, things like that, it does accelerate that. It makes it easier. But I don't know that anyone has an advantage. There's just a comfort at that point. And at the end of the day, it's who's going to perform for this 3 to 5 games? Who's going to perform the best in this sample? We've all seen it where good teams don't win in the playoffs because they're not playing well that period, or teams that aren't as talented get hot and they roll. So, I think our players have said it, and Smith said it. The teams that don't make mistakes and get things done, should come out ahead. But I think this is going to be very close as it was during the year.
All right, let me finish up. I'm asking the guy whose bullpen actually performed to an MVP level this year. Do you like now in the postseason the minimum 3 batter rule?
Yes. I like it because we have the guys to do it.
Right.
And, if we had, where you had guys like Jerry Blevins in the past that was strictly left, or guys that are strictly right-handed only. But, and this bullpen was constructed that way to be able to handle both sides. And it was also constructed from, and this is on me, previous failures to build good bullpens and have enough depth and give the manager enough options to be able to do that. And, I was really worried about the Red Series, and I'm worried about every series, but after we went through our advance, all of our all the meetings we had and so on, really diving into our bullpen, how they lined up with the lineup of the Reds and the hitters and so on, it made me feel better. I had that much more confidence overall because our bullpen is that deep, and especially now in a 5-game series or what could be 5, we're not going to be able to pitch guys 4 days in a row, 5 days in a row, I don't think. So Smith having those options, having that depth, I think will be really key for us.
Braves GM Alex Anthopoulos joining us here on The Fan. Thanks so much, Alex. Have a great evening.
All right, guys. Enjoyed it.
Thanks, Alex.
Guy's always just incredible to talk to. He talks about the game at at a different level, obviously, but that's the reason he's in the position he's in. But I still feel like he breaks it down so even just everyday Braves fans understand where he's coming from and what he's trying to accomplish.
He doesn't forget anything either. I mean, when you're in that position, he can rattle off stats from 2 or 3 years ago and go, we were 23rd in the league in this, and then we're 8th, and we're doing this and that. I mean,
and something that he maybe learned in Toronto, he'll either talk about off air, saying, hey, 4 years ago this happened, and boy, I've always kept it in mind because the situation can come up again. Look, it was a really loaded question when you have arguably maybe the best bullpen in baseball and one that's performed certainly as well as any. I kind of knew the answer to that. It is such an inherent advantage if you have a bullpen that you don't have to do what Rick Renteria did the other day that we talked about. I don't like it. I don't think you're supposed to be able to tell me how it is I can go about winning a baseball game. I like it for the Atlanta Braves because it's an inherent built-in real advantage. It's a real advantage. We get lefties and righties. But as a fan, I'm going, part of the strategy that baseball has had over the years is, why am I doing this? Why is this matchup good for me? I don't really have to do that now with the three batter minimum. I don't like it as a fan because I'd like you to be able to do whatever it is. Might blow up in your face, but I want you to be able to do whatever it is you think you have to do to get out of an inning.
Well, and that's where the Braves are in a great position because, as Alex said, you got lefties who can get righties out, righties who can get lefties out. You don't have those strictly left on left guys. Those guys are they're going to be a thing of the past in the game with this 3-batter minimum. So I see both sides of it, trying to speed up the dead time, eliminate those changes.
Postseason, but it doesn't matter though. To me, you're just supposed to figure out a way to win.
Yep.
It is kind of interesting that, thank goodness, the Braves bullpen is built where if I use a guy today and I need him tomorrow, if I have to give him the day off, I've got an alternative that I can use in a Game 3.
Yeah, but he was clear, though, when you asked that question. He was very clear. I'm okay with it because it works for us. Yeah. I think had it been the opposite, he would have been very honest and said, no, I hate it.
Yeah, go ask the White Sox if they think the 3-batter minimum in the postseason's a good thing.
Billy the Kid coming up in about 6 minutes as we welcome Billy Ripken to the Braves postseason preview show here on the Fan 680 93.7 FM, as well as the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. and 93.7 FM, as well as on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. That's where you can check in with us. There's all kinds of content there. Kevin, you spend a lot of time on the YouTube channel as well, man, doing Braves updates and talking about the Braves. So it's a great place. Make sure you like and subscribe while you're there. You can follow us on social media. You can hit us at 680 The Fan across all the platforms. Here in just a few minutes, Billy Ripken, we'll get him on from MLB Network. Billy the Kid, and Chris Domino lined that up for us. But first, let's talk about something cool that happened the other day.
Yeah, how about this? So I'm going to try to hold this up for the folks watching on the YouTube channel. If anybody can see, this is the lineup card from the Braves' Game 1 win over the Cincinnati Reds on Wednesday. Coincidentally, my daughter was born in, and I was following along in the OR. I was checking my phone very briefly. Don't tell my wife I did that, but here is the lineup card that I actually got from the game, sent to my house Saturday morning. The folks who sent it over didn't want the notoriety, so I just want to say thank you to the Braves. Really, really cool moment. But hopefully my daughter is the good luck charm. My daughter Mia was born, and the Braves haven't given up a run yet in the two games they've played since she came into this earth.
That's
so
a lot of pressure.
Big thanks.
A lot of pressure on a newborn. That's a lot of pressure.
Well, I got to tell you, I did get a tweet from one of our most loyal followers, Dayton from Nebraska, and he said, "Well, now you have to have a kid every time the Braves play a postseason game."
Man.
Now that's a lot of pressure.
Can you adopt? I mean, is it going to be natural born, or what's
I said, this is the last one. This is it.
Yeah,
I got bad news for you, but thanks to the Braves, really, really cool. And this is going to be in a good spot in the baby's room, and she's already a big Braves fan, so we'll raise her right.
And by the way, so people understand, actually, this is where you're marking who's in, who's out, who's left in the rotation. Snit has to sign it. It's all those things that you actually that you go, okay, what are they doing when it's up on the wall in the dugout?
Yeah, this is from the dugout.
Yeah, they're managing a game. They're actually making sure that they understand bench coach. You can't be fooled.
Yeah.
If you get fooled as a bench coach and a manager in one of these games, regular Tuesday in May, it's not good. If in the postseason, all of a sudden you're looking around going, what just happened? You got a bigger problem. So that's the real thing.
Now, I'm going to have to ask Snip because there's some markings on it. There's little things crossed out. I'm going to have to figure out what their system, or maybe it's Walt Weiss I need to talk to about the system of how they note this thing up during a game. Because as we know, baseball scorecards, everyone's got their own different way of doing it, right? The way I do it, you probably wouldn't understand mine and vice versa. So I'm going to have to get the explanation on the information here. So
there we go. Code.
Yeah, exactly.
Have to get the key code
exactly.
from Morse
code. There you go. We're going to bring Billy Ripken onto the show, the Braves postseason preview show here on the Fan, 680 and 93.7 FM, as well as on YouTube. Sir, we appreciate your time, man. I tell you, the doubters in the beginning, they were doubting the Braves. Oh, he's not ready. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. That was something that we talked about with Ben Ingram a little bit earlier, is that there were experts, and I'm doing air quotes for those not watching on YouTube, that did not choose the Braves. They were from MLB Network, they're from ESPN, they were from several places. And they were completely wrong. And it was one of those things where I never understood why they chose. Why were the Reds the sexy pick when the Braves have done nothing but bash the baseball?
I think the pitching was the big story. And I think that the big question marks for the Braves was the starting rotation. You knew Max Fried, but how was Ian Anderson going to respond in his first? I mean, the guy's only made a handful of big league starts. Now, things look pretty good, right? Yeah. The big question now is, what's Kyle Wright going to look like? And what's Ian Anderson going to look like his second time around? So I think that's why you saw the doubts. It was the starting pitching. Trevor Bauer is going to win the Cy Young. Castillo and then Sonny Gray, if that thing went 3 games. Advantage at least felt like on paper Cincinnati. But you're right. With the Braves offense, the way they've been going, it just felt like they were in a much better position, especially being the home team.
We're going to welcome in Bill Ripken. I think the one question, every series has question. The Starling Marte question is really the question before we do anything in this series as to whether he's going to be healthy enough to play. If he's in a lineup, what's he going to be able to do? So I do believe Bill is ready.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. What is it? I don't know if you heard that conversation, why so many people doubted the Braves. Many of the experts, the so-called experts, were choosing the Reds over the Braves. And it came down to pitching, I suppose, but the Braves matched them with pitching even though they were young.
Well, I got a couple things I can hang my hat on, and I'll go back to last year, and I know it was 2019. It's a long time ago, but preseason I picked, or pre-postseason, shall I say, I picked the Nationals to beat the Astros in the World Series. So I got a pretty good track record.
Yes, sir.
Now,
hold on. This is going to get good.
Now, with that said, I picked the Cleveland Indians winning the World Series in 2020. So my track record just got blown up. But I will say this. I was one of the guys that liked Atlanta. And it was something about Atlanta. And it's one of those things that you know, it's not scientific. You can't put your finger on it. I knew that Cincinnati coming in, looked at the starting rotation, and I said, you know what, that's a nod there. And typically I would say good pitching always gets out good hitting, but there was something about Atlanta this year. Now, these 2 games against Cincinnati didn't necessarily make me look smart because I was actually thinking Atlanta was going to get to them as far as offensively was concerned. I didn't put a whole lot of stock in Fried and Anderson, and not to mention the job that the Atlanta bullpen did throwing blanks up with the board all over the place as well. So it was one of those things. Maybe I flipped a coin in the back of my head and got a little bit lucky, but I actually do like Atlanta. And I think this is a series here, and you guys being Atlanta Braves fans probably are skeptical because you're going, oh, no, here's these upstart Marlins, and we got to look out. But I actually like Atlanta again in this one pretty handedly.
Bill, curious your thoughts on this Braves lineup. When you look at Acuna, Freeman, Ozuna, the latter 2 of those right in the mix for an MVP here in the National League. When you look at the top 4, top 5 the Braves run out there on a nightly basis, where do you feel like this lineup ranks as far as, I guess, the teams that are left standing? Because a lot of us have talked here in Atlanta, 1 through 5, you can put this lineup against anybody in baseball right now.
Well, look, I think, number 1, Freddie Freeman's the MVP. And I think he needs to start getting some national credibility as being as good of a first baseman as he is, 1, but also what he can do. And think about that 13th inning. You know, he's lefty on lefty, and, you know, everybody in that game, both teams, Cincinnati and Atlanta, was trying to hit 3-run homers with nobody on base. And I think everybody felt pretty good about Freddie Freeman being up. But this lineup's good. I don't think there's any question about it. What Acuna, Ozuna, and Freeman were doing with pushing the OPS of 1,000 in that neighborhood. But then you got some sleeper guys. And, you know, Nick Markakis can be hitting 8th, and Riley can be hitting 9th. And you got a guy in the 8th spot that's got thousands of hits in the big leagues. And you got a guy hitting behind him that can hit a ball 470 feet at will and sneak you there. So this lineup is deep. It's good. That'll just give you a little bit of credibility towards the Cincinnati Reds pitching that they were able to hold them down as much as they did too.
Hey, Bill, I don't think you're going to remember, but we had a conversation in Orlando, and you ended up writing a book about the idea of analytics versus eyeballs, taking a pulse and a heart rate. To me, when Castellanos tries to make a play, you still as an outfielder have to make that play. I don't know what's on paper. When you get a guy in a rundown and you actually throw it 5 times and you do it the right way and you get a guy out between, you know, third and home, to me it still tells me that baseball players have to make baseball plays no matter what the piece of paper says before the game actually gets started. I enjoyed the conversation, but I enjoy watching the game with sort of that mindset that Freddie Freeman, if you give him a chance to beat you, there's a chance he's going to beat you. I don't know if the paper says that, but I know I've seen it with my eyeballs.
Yeah, and there's no question about that. And look, I think, and I do remember our conversation in the dugout because I was going to go out there and deal with Ron Washington early in the morning there on the little half field. And the idea that really generated my thought process for the book in the first place was the assumption out there that the new and improved, or these new young smart guys that are coming into the game, and they use the terms of metrics and analytics, and they discard the fact that old guys have always used information. We've always used numbers to try to better ourselves. But the bottom line is the information that is first and foremost, that's right in front of your eyeballs on a daily basis, I believe gets ignored by that pre-game plan by some of the new and improved thinking guys that come into the game. So, you know, this guy can't go through the order 3 times. Well, no, he can, because if you're watching the game and the guy's got a little bit different life on his heater, or his breaking ball's a little bit crisper, his body language is a little bit better, that should be the first and foremost piece of information that you have anything that's right in front of your eyes that you have a baseball experience of should be the first and foremost piece of information that you use.
How do you feel like, Bill, the Braves handle the analytics thing? You got Snit, who's a 40-year Braves employee. He's a guy that has a gut instinct. And you got Alex Anthopoulos, who is definitely into analytics. But they seem to me to balance it pretty well. How do you see it?
Well, there needs to be a happy medium. I would applaud and do applaud any young guy that doesn't have necessarily a baseball background coming into the game with some thoughts. But what you hope for is when those thoughts and that bit of information comes to me, the baseball person, there's got to be that understanding that I say, you know what, I see what you're doing here. It doesn't apply to the actual baseball world. And this is why. And then you have the back and forth in the conversation. But GMs and managers and the good ones that you go back in yesteryear, I mean, think about Sherholtz and Cox. I mean, those guys weren't just playing gin rummy after games and doing things. They were sharing information. They were sharing ideas, and you come to the conclusion that this is what we're going to do. So I don't see any problem with new information or new thought process coming into the game, but I don't want to ignore, I don't want to discard the baseball guy who's been there, done it, and seen it.
Bill Ripken joining us here on 680 The Fan. Bill, I wanted to get your thoughts on playing in these empty ballparks and, of course, a neutral location for the next couple of rounds of the postseason. You've got a couple of young guys in this Braves rotation, Ian Anderson and Kyle Wright, who, I mean, Ian made his seventh big league start, and it came in a postseason game the other day. Do you think that can actually help some of these young guys where maybe they take the field, they don't have the nerves of there being 40, 45,000 people in the stands? Do you think that actually plays to the Braves' favor, where these guys can just go out there, do their thing, do their job, and not get caught up and wrapped up in the moment of being on the mound in the postseason?
Well, you know what? I think it helps in any young player. I mean, look, we saw a Minnesota guy play the outfield, made his big league debut in a division series, or in a wild card series, shall I say. And look, on the Marlins side of the street, Donnie Mattingly was talking about you might see this one guy come up and throw.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's something to be said. And you know what? In this strange, bizarre 2020 season, watching the regular season baseball games on TV, if you really just watched the game, you didn't miss anything. It didn't seem like anything was missing because I think the players went out there and played. But I will say this, once the playoffs started, you know, I miss some of those things that are going on because some of those moments are big. And, you know, think about the Marlins going into Chicago and being able to win there. Was there some sort of factor that went into play where they weren't overwhelmed with the situation? Because Wrigley's going to be crazy if they're a playoff game in Wrigley. So I think it's a little bit different. I'm going to be interested to see on the next round. I believe there's going to be some fans in the ballpark, and I think the World Series the same way. But I miss seeing the fans in the playoffs because some of those big moments, it just doesn't seem to be the same.
Yeah, Bill, I think the easiest job in the ballpark is to be the home plate umpire when you don't have people breathing down you. And again, consciously, subconsciously, I do think that sometimes you get caught up in a little bit of what the noise is. I want to ask you something. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to go there because I'm going to say, you know, being a visiting player going into Yankee Stadium in some big moments sometimes, you felt like the play got a little bit bigger. So I will say that in some of the hostile environments that they might be able to take a little bit of a step back and take a breath.
I want to ask you something because you grew up in a baseball family, obviously. I go back to some of the conversations I've had with guys, certainly in the 40s and 50s, who played in the 40s, but going up to the 60s. Reggie Smith was telling me a story when he was in Boston. It really was still a mindset. You don't get your swings until those guys have done it. If there's no time, you don't get your swings today. 70s, that stuff happened, whether it was hazing or whatever you want to call it. I think one of the reasons we actually have an influx of young guys who actually play better is because of the treatment they get the minute they walk in the door, where you're one of 25 or 26 or 28 now in this postseason. You're here to help us. Why would I actually want to diminish who you might be psychologically? Why do I want to make you a lesser player? I think really it's kind of incredible, and it's not talked about because it was a terribly kept secret about how young guys were treated for a while. I think they have it much easier now with an acceptance factor, and if you're here, why do I want to actually make you feel lesser than you are or you might be coming to the ballpark every day? And I do think it's no coincidence that young guys might be playing at a higher level than ever.
Well, I will say this. There's certain things to be said for that. And look, I've never been a part of alienating somebody and doing something like that. Back in yesteryear, it was, you should be seen, not heard type mentality is what you're talking about. Now it seems the young guy believes that they should be completely heard. And I think they may have taken it too far on that side of things with some of their social media world and everything else. But I'll say this. When we had a closer in Baltimore that came up, Greg Olson, and before K-Rod, Ole was the fastest guy to 100 saves in the big leagues. I think he was like 33 saves a year for the first 3 years, so he got to 100 saves. And on the bus trips and on the planes, there were sort of like assigned seating that went on, and a lot of it revolved around status. As far as tenure, but a lot of it revolved around, who you were and what you were doing on the team. So on the bus trips, whether it was to and from the airport or spring training, Junior, my bro, certainly had his own 2 seats right in front of the crapper in the back right. I was a ghetto dweller, and I always sat in the bench seat all the way in the back and had the privilege of sharing that with Mickey Tettleton. Greg Olson had his own 2 seats as a very young player, because he was the man. And so when you go through those things and you hear about the hazings and everything else, I never agreed with that kind of stuff. I thought it was kind of crazy and crappy to go along with it. But, maybe some of these young guys have come up, and the fact that these guys play at such levels in the tournaments and the showcases that they go through at such young ages, they've seen all these high-quality arms, with 16, 17, 18 years old. So when they get up to the big leagues, they're not overwhelmed.
Hey, Bill, can I ask you the bottom feeders thing? I know Batalico was the guy that started that, I think, the opening series with the Phillies and the Marlins. One of the other tried and true traditions in baseball is the T-shirts. I don't know if they're wearing bottom feeder T-shirts, and maybe it's not for us to see unless they want to go to a post-game press conference with a win with a guy wearing it. But how much do you buy into the idea that that's who they believe they are and they're really rolling with this thing right now?
Well, I think it was Cooper the other day talking about it, right? He had a bottom feeder shirt on and said that somebody tabbed him, I think, in Philadelphia as far as the Phillies were playing the bottom feeder.
It was Batalico. It was Ricky Batalico.
Right. So you're sitting there and you're going, I don't know. I mean, my daddy always said, let a sleeping dog lie. And you don't want to wake something up. But that seems to be a theory that's just thrown completely out the window. I saw that shirt on when I was on the network the other night on the air, and I said, bottom feeders? I said, Marlins aren't bottom feeders. That's carp and catfish. I said, Marlins come up and hit stuff on the surface hard. But I get the idea of it. And sometimes, obviously a rallying cry, a T-shirt's not going to carry you through something. But there's something to be said for that. When the boys are wearing the bottom feeder shirts in there, and they take a little bit of offense to somebody taking shots of them. And Cooper even said, and he goes, and where are they and where are we? And I think that's a pretty good answer.
All right, final thought, Braves Marlins, how do you see it playing out?
I like the Braves. I really do. And look, there's no question that the Marlins have some young arms. They're going to come after the Braves. But what the Braves were just able to withstand with Cincinnati and being able to win 2 games like that. And I think it's really cool just to see the pitching staff of the Braves, because it might not be the same pitching staff we would have thought of if the Braves were playing in the DS. When we started this season, some guys went down, but some guys stepped up, and it seems to be that Brave tradition going. So I like the Bravos. I think they're too deep, position player-wise, lineup-wise. And I think after this thing's all said and done, the Braves move on.
Hey, Billy, I know you're not a hype machine, but we'll ask you about the other series real quick. The Rays-Yankees really don't like each other. That's a real thing. I don't know if you believe the Yankees lineup now hitting home runs is going to counter the Rays pitching. I'll ask you about the series in a second. But what about the idea of storylines? Now that you've been in the media this long, there really is such a thing in our world where I root for storylines. I couldn't get a better storyline, really, than the Rays and the Yankees are really not liking each other and maybe having it played out in this series.
Well, I think the Rays-Yankees, good storyline because they don't like each other. I don't think there's any question about it. And the A's and the Astros. There's a couple reasons for those different things going on. So I like the storylines of that. I do like the Yankees lineup. It's deep right now. We're sitting there. It's 1-1. after one, somebody jumped cold to center field. I was just getting out of the shower when I saw that on my iPad, so I don't know who it was. But 1-1 in that game. After two, we saw what the Astros were doing. It's a really unique situation. I'm not a big fan of this 16 format moving forward because I believe the 162 should stand for something in baseball. But I have to admit, in this unique season of 60 games, this bracket looks pretty cool. And I really thought that the 1-8, okay, Tampa and Toronto, Dodgers, Brewers, I thought that was a gimme. I can pick those. And then I really thought also that you could make the argument or coin flip the other series and maybe have a good enough chance to move forward. And I think it's pretty exciting the way this thing's laid out. But storylines, I'm interested to see because you got to pitch the Yankees inside. Absolutely 100% have to pitch the Yankees inside. And when you do that, it means somebody's going to be hit. So if somebody gets hit within this 5-game series, I want to see how that's handled, but I do love the storyline of teams not liking each other.
And real quick, the Padres and the Dodgers, can you be an upstart and take down the team that's been waiting and trying for this for as long as the Dodgers have?
Well, you can. The Clevenger-Lamet thing really tests that theory that you can do that because I thought that the Nationals last year, like I said, when I picked them to go on and win it, I had them beating the Dodgers, obviously, because they had some big donkeys on the mound that could go out there and dominate. And if Clevenger and Lamet can't go, that's going to be really hard to get through the Dodgers. They're really good. They're really deep. They're really talented. So if there's anything can happen in a short series, I think we all are very aware of that. But I can't see the Padres minus Clevenger and Lamet beating them.
Bill Ripken, we appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you, boys.
Thanks,
Good luck to the
Thanks, Bill.
Bravos.
We got about 5 minutes left in the show. We'll break here about 55. But recapping, I mean, anything that we need to hit that we haven't.
I mean, Bill covered a lot of different topics. I mean, that was great stuff.
What about the Marte? I wanted to ask you about Marte. Boy, what a difference maker if he's not in the lineup or not effective.
And both sides of the ball, too, right? I mean, you know how good he is offensively, but he can play some defense as well. So that is a big loss for me. I mean, Marte was a move at the deadline where I think a lot of us looked around and said, what are the Marlins exactly trying to accomplish here? And, of course, it's paid off for them. But, man, if he can't go, that's a huge void on both sides of the ball for this Miami ball club.
Interesting that Bill brought up hit by pitch and pitching inside, especially with Braves Marlins knowing. I mean, Urania being out is probably not going to be as testy as it could be. But if someone were to get hit, specifically Acuna, that could get ugly pretty quick.
It could, but I don't see any of that happening. I really don't. I mean, look, at the end of the day, how do you beat guys like Acuna? How do you beat guys like Ozuna? You got to pitch them inside. Right. You can't be afraid to pitch inside. That's part of the game. But look, the fact that you're not going to see Jose Urania, I don't think we're going to have to worry any of these storylines. I'm sure it's going to be brought up at some point. They are.
But the Tampa thing is really real.
Yes, it is.
That if you don't want to pitch to this version of the Yankees I mean, you might as well just here you go. I'd like a death sentence for one, please, and let me just write it out. Blake Snell's not afraid. I certainly know Charlie Morton, who's got more giddy up on his fastball than he did 10 years ago, is not afraid to go inside. He's been in a World Series, the biggest moments. Glasnow's a guy to me. And look, Kevin Cash was a guy who said it. I got a stable of guys who throw 98. You want to play this game with me? Don't. And it was really an interesting tell that a manager stuck up for his team. Collective mindset of who we are. You want to do that to us? No. We'll bring a gun to the gunfight. We're not going to bring a rock anymore. We don't care that we got a $59 million payroll. I don't care who you are. I don't care about your 27 banners. I thought the manager actually made a really good move in that. Now the question is, can you actually go do it? And pitch inside enough where the Yankees' power, which seems to be back, is at least, if not neutralized, contained.
Yeah, meanwhile, Clint Frazier just hit a ball to the moon. So speaking about power, I think that's the second home run that Blake Snell has given up here tonight.
He might be the biggest enigma in all of it. Like, he's goofy, and you go, why is he down? There's got to be something about that guy.
Yeah.
Since he's been up this year, all he's done is actually add to the idea that the Yankees could bludgeon you on a given night.
Stars in baseball, does that matter? Do you think stars are so important to a team like the Yankees, or can those scrappy teams like the A's actually do something, or do you think the stars step up and it's not even going to be?
I believe the stars shine brightest in October.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, look, it's great to have
Or
teams.
they don't. You got a reputation as being a guy who does.
Sure, and that's a great point. But I just think when you're facing a team like the Yankees, or look, if you're a team like the Marlins, it's been a great story, right?
Who are
It's been
their
a good
stars?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
you talking about the Yankees?
No, the Marlins.
Oh, the Marlins. Okay.
Who are their stars?
Right. Yeah, but they're all on the mound, and it's guys that don't have a lot on the back of the baseball card, but they're playing with house money. And to me, that's what makes them scary. If I have to worry about one team, it's the team that nobody thought should be there, probably a year or two ahead of schedule on when they should be a contending ball club. Those are the ones I worry the most about. You can say what you want about the Reds or the Cardinals or the Dodgers, but a team like Miami, who we've seen a lot, and we've seen how they've improved the last couple of years, those are the ones that worry me the most.
Joey Votto is a guy, I'm assuming he's a star, a lot of all-stars.
Yeah, sure.
But when you don't step up, like I've always believed that you can't win unless you got a guy from beyond the left field wall. Somebody's got to do something that wasn't expected. Somebody's gives you a better chance to win in a short series. I don't think you can just rely on stars. I really don't. I think you need Dansby Swanson's not a star. We know everybody's name here, so we're not even. But if you go west of the Mississippi and you ask guys, Travis d'Arnaud, he played with the Mets.
Maybe.
But that's the type of guy that I think in baseball's postseason in October, you need guys like that, or else I don't think you win. Because stars aren't supposed to beat you. If you have good pitching, Freddie Freeman's not supposed to beat you. Now, the fact that he's got Marcell Ozuna hitting behind him makes it a little bit tougher to do it. But you've got to pick your poison. And that's when the guy who's not supposed to do something does something. And that's why baseball's postseason is better than everybody else's combined, because I got beyond the left field wall guys who come out. I got a guy who might get the baseball 3 times coming out of the bullpen that guy just had 3 holds. That was the most important guy in a 5 or a 7 game series. You're not winning without that.
Yeah.
And by the way, we have those guys. It's just because we know their names, we might not think of them as those guys.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see, because Freddie Freeman, he's another guy that I don't know outside of Atlanta. There's some people that know him, but
walk him.
Yeah.
Let me ask you the other day. You're watching that game. Is Freddie Freeman supposed to get that at bat?
Which one? The game on Wednesday? Well, I wasn't watching that part of it. I was watching it on my phone. But you don't let a guy like Freddie Freeman beat you. Don't let my wife know that I was watching it in the OR.
Wouldn't do that.
Oh, we still into that again? Yeah. She knows you were watching. I hate to tell you.
She already knows.
I hate to tell you, she knows you were watching.
Sorry, even if you didn't say it, she knows.
I know. No, but you're right. To your point, you don't let Freddie Freeman beat you in that spot. No chance.
There you go for Chris Domino and Ben Ingram, also Kevin McAlpin. My name is Tug Cowart. We appreciate you joining us tonight. The Braves postseason preview show on The Fan, 680 93.7 FM, as well as on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. Have a great evening, and go Braves.